All right, cool. We are live with the author of the series Wildly Inappropriate Stories for Kids, Will Blaine, everyone. How would you describe yourself to somebody who has no idea who you are?
Uh, I don't know. I'm a pretty low key kind of guy. I don't don't like to stand out or anything like that. I do like writing. Not a big talker. Do a lot of it in writing. That's the best way to describe me, I think.
Good, good. So let's touch on your book. What are the series? What inspired you to bring it to this kind of topic, I guess?
That was my. I go to my to Maine every winter. My daughter and both my sisters, two of my sisters, live up there, and we spend a week or two up there with them. And we were talking around the dinner table one night, and we're talking about all the things that we did when we were kids. So one of the things my youngest sister likes to bring up. She's about 9 or 10 years younger than I am. Is when we grew up in a small farm in West Virginia, and she likes to tell the story about how I hit her in the knees with a 2x4. So I said, it wasn't, I'm older. I remember the situation. Know what happened. It was a furring strip I hit you in the knees with.
Okay.
So I had to make that correction. Not that it's any better necessarily.
Right.
And it wasn't like she tells it like I hit her in the knees as hard as I could, which
A
is not the
caning?
case. Right, right. This is like, a kneecapping. But what had happened? And we had chickens, and I was one of my chores was to feed the chickens, and I got pieces of corn, and I was throwing the corn up and hitting it with a furring strip.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the chickens would chase it, and we were having a good time. And my sister, we also had goats. We had a dairy goat farm,
Oh, my.
and she was sitting on the milk stand, and as I was swinging away, she got hit on the backswing. I just,
What
but
were you doing standing there?
well, it technically it was my fault, but yeah, she liked to recall that. But anyway, we started talking about all the things that we did as children that our parents wished we wouldn't have done. So that was the inspiration for the whole book series. So my first book was called Vlad and the Vast Beach. A little boy goes with his mother, and they're going to have a nice day at the beach, and he ends up wandering away and getting lost and having his own adventure. And I think that everybody has probably had one of those adventures at one point in their life or another. I'm sure that you've wandered away from your parents. Your parents have no idea where you are, and given a little bit of a scare.
Right.
You know, and that's a very very nostalgic thing for a lot of people, and something that is very relatable. So that was my first story. The second story is Sticky Fingers from Jam. Now that was also based on something that I hadn't thought about for years. Again, I grew up on the farm, and when I had to do my chores in the morning during the summertime when the school was out, um, I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and walk to the barn that was in the middle of the farm, which involved me walking past my uncle's house. So my cousin, he was probably 2 or 3 years old at the time. Um, as I'm walking by, he comes out of a cornfield, completely naked. I mean, no clothes on whatsoever, and he's covered from head to toe in butter and sugar. And he proceeds to tell me, I'm like 8 or 10 or something like that at the time. I'm not that old. He proceeds to tell me about how he made himself breakfast, and I'm like, oh, made yourself breakfast, okay. And I didn't think about that again for years until I started out this book series, and I was like, I wonder what his kitchen looked like, and his bedroom and living room and every place else that he's touched. If he's covered after walking through a cornfield in butter and sugar to that extent,
Right.
it's got to be a mess. His parents probably killed him, you know, because
Yeah.
and thinking about that, um, I think every child has decided at one point in their life to make themselves breakfast. Get up early and make yourself breakfast before mom and dad get out of the bed, and it's invariably it's some type of large catastrophe, a big mess. So that was my second book, Sticky Fingers from Jam. And I've got a lot of other stories too. I wrote a story just a few weeks ago called Wee Wally. I think that's very popular with men. Um,
Wee Wally?
Wee Wally, yeah. So I
Okay.
can read that to you if you want. This will give you a little sample of
Sure.
what my stories are like. So this is not published or anything yet. So
Okay.
I'll just read it to you, see what you think. You can give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. All right, it goes like this. I learned something new today, and now that I'm 3, I'm constantly searching for new places to wee. Mom had shown me the toilet. I left some debris, but as we walked down the lane, she didn't foresee that I had to go badly a wee emergency. So she told me that I should just go on a tree, which left me to wonder just where can I wee? I weed on the flowers planted in our front yard. I weed on Mom's tires without any regard for all of the trouble she went through that day to polish and scrub them to a shine while I played. I weed on a tree already, that's true, but from a tree? That is to weed with a view. The branches were all wet, all covered from spray. Getting down, I got damp, but that was okay. As I walked past our house while chasing a ball, I had to go badly, so I weed on the wall. I stood drawing patterns using only my stream. I could see it's a talent, or so it would seem. I weed in a bottle that I found by the street. I did it out in the open and far from discreet. I tried to wee on a bird, but had no success. I tried running and weeing. It was such a big mess. I weed on I weed on some ants that were running around. I weed on a post that was stuck in the ground. I weed in a puddle and then made one of my own. When I weed on the steps, some splashed on Dad's phone. I weed on Mom's pots with lettuce growing inside, but she couldn't tell, even if she had tried. When I weed on the couch, it sprayed all around. My kitty got frightened and quickly jumped down. As I weed in the closet, I drew little kid art. I made some circles, a square, a flower, and a heart. As I finished my canvas, I heard a great cry. Mom had sat on our couch that was no longer dry. She stood there perplexed as she felt her backside about the source of the liquid and why it would hide. She looked up at the ceiling and then the walls and the floor, but still couldn't imagine what the water was for. While all this was happening, I walked down the hall. I planned to get a big drink and then play some football. I'm not sure how it happened. Somehow I'd lost track of my intent to go play and to be quarterback. I climbed to the counter to get a glass from the shelf, and as I filled it with water, I was proud of myself. I was weeing in the sink as Mom walked in the room. She insisted our kitchen was not a bathroom. She told me the toilet is the only place I should wee, and if she didn't, she'd swat me. That's a sure guarantee. The lesson we learn here is even though we are free to wee where we have to, we must always foresee that there are lots of those out there that will not agree. Even though it is doubtful, Mom will agree with my view. I know if she had an aimer, she'd wee on things too. If nature comes knocking, discreetly answer the door. In the woods or your toilet, and in a pinch, go explore.
It is pretty good. I like it.
I like that. It's very relatable. It's very relatable.
Yeah.
Everybody, every male at least, has in the potty training days have had their parents, uh, you know, pee on this, pee on that. I can remember those days, and it was a big thing to,
Yeah.
it teaches you control and not to wet yourself. So it's a very common thing.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I distinctly remember my mother telling me this story. I would go and piss on the balcony potted plant a lot. And then when she moved it, I would just pee off the balcony. Lo and behold, my dad and his best friend were down there working on a motorcycle. I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, yes, I will never live that down from my mom.
Well, and they probably talk about that at family reunions
Oh,
and
yeah, they do.
gathering. Yeah.
Yes, they do.
And every family has that.
Yep.
Every family has that. Any young male, and they always love that story because it sparks that nostalgia of what has happened in their life, and talking about little Johnny has done this, that, or the other.
Right.
And even the older ones, the grandparents or great grandparents, talk about the father or the grandfather
Oh,
in his
yeah.
days. So it's very universal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Walking around marking your territory.
Yeah, why not?
That's a good one. I really enjoy that one. You said that's not published yet?
No, it's not published. So I've been doing my own illustrations and things like that. So it takes me, I'm not as fast a drawer as I am an author. So it takes a little
Yeah.
while. But
Yeah.
in my first book that I published, I was not really looking to get into the whole publishing thing. I was just going to read my stories, just like I read to you.
Right.
But I found out that you can't do that. You can't make an audiobook without having an actual book. So
Yeah.
that's the reason that I published my first book. And when I published it, I didn't have a cover, a fancy
Right.
cover, or, no illustrations in it or anything like that.
And then, like,
So
I'm assuming your publicist was like, okay, so you can make this into a kid's book.
that was the thing. So the first one that everybody was complaining, it doesn't have any illustrations, no illustrations. Like, well, I
Right.
that wasn't what I was going for. So my second book, I did put a cover on it and did a little bit of fancier inside, but it still didn't have illustrations in it. My third book, The Glorious Gizzard of Roz, which is not part of the Wildly Inappropriate Stories for Children series, I did fully illustrate it. So it's actually, just like an ordinary kids book, lots of pictures and rhyming words and pretty simple.
Right. Yeah. The wife's on the phone. I'm like, I hear people talking. What's going on? It was a little weird. Um, but no, that's really good. And if that's just a sample of your other writings, that's fairly solid writing for even like if it's targeted towards kids, right?
Yeah, it
Or
is. It is, and it's so I write my books with the intent of parents reading with their children. So
yeah,
they do have some. I mean, it's not like for a 5-year-old. They're for older kids, obviously. And so the problem, I think, this is a societal problem, is that children aren't taught to read well. I mean, I mentioned to you before, I've taught school in the past, and I
right.
still time to time go into classrooms. And one thing that I did find disturbing when teaching high school is that high school, a lot of, not all of them, but there are a significant number of high school students that do not read well. Um, I would maybe they're not functionally illiterate, but they're pretty close, and that's the biggest thing that if you can do for your children is to read with them so that they learn to read well, they'll go a lot farther in life. So
Right.
if you learn to read well, you can read a book and understand math, and you can read a book and understand physics, and you can, read a book and, understand history.
Oh yeah.
It's a detriment if you can't read well and comprehend well, and that's done a big way is by parents reading with their children from birth. I mean, even before my daughter was born, even while my ex-wife was pregnant, I would read to her, while she's still in the belly. So like we developed that as a tradition, and my
Just
daughter
went from
was
there.
she learned to read quickly. I mean, she was well before 5 years old able to read regular books. So it's possible, but it takes work. I mean, and a lot of times we live in a society that's, parents are busy, and
Oh yeah.
it's easier to sit the kids in front of the television. And frankly, sitting in front of the television doesn't teach you to read for the most part.
Yeah. Turn subtitles on.
Uh, well, turn the
I
volume down, turn the subtitles up. Maybe that would help. I don't know, but
yeah.
reading the actual book though, making that a skill and
Oh
cultivating
yeah.
that skill, invaluable, invaluable.
So my biggest issue so I graduated in 2009. My biggest issue with reading books was I was not interested in the material. And so when I was reading it, like we had to do book reports on Huck Finn before it got banned. And as I'm reading the book, I'm like, this it's just nothing about this is inspiring anything in me. It's just I kind of lack of a better term. It was a garbage book in my opinion, and I didn't really relate till older when I realized, oh, it was supposed to teach me life values or whatever and
Right.
different things. I'm like, as a as an angsty teenager, why the hell should I read this? Give me something more appropriate. But I'm not for or against it now. I really just think it's a piece of literature, and I don't know. I see it in a neutral light. I don't see it in a bad or good light.
Well, Western culture is based on a lot of classic literature. I mean, there's a shared
Right.
understanding in Western culture and Western civilization. In the pages of Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and Swiss Family Robinson and Robinson Crusoe, and
Right.
even in the Bible, there's lots of shared things, phrases that people say all the time, that's where they are. That's how we have an understanding of one another.
Yes.
Uh, if you don't understand that, then you're out of touch with society. So that's the value that I see in it. And aside from learning to read, is uh, learning those reasonings and a thinking process. So I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but my wife and I both speak Russian. When you speak another language, it's not just the different words, it's an entirely different thinking process when you're speaking another language.
Right,
So
because you
it's
have to form it in a different punctuation and a verbal vocation. Like, I believe, I'm slowly learning, but I believe you put verbs before nouns in Russian. Like, it's kind of a little bit backwards, and like, he went over there. Well, it'd be more of like, uh, you'd probably know this better. It'd be worked to like, instead of he went over there, it would be more like he is there.
well, there's it's entirely different. The verb structure. There's conjugation and there's different. They put different endings on um, those words, which tell the speaker and the recipient um, who they're talking to. So I'll give an example, like you, for instance. If I
Okay.
say you in English, it can mean a whole bunch of different things. I could
Right.
be talking about you as an individual. I could be talking about you as in your audience. I could be talking to yeah, mankind in general, you people.
Right.
So um, that's in Russian. They have an ending is you, yes, yet, yum, yete, yut. They put those endings on it, which directs where the attention is supposed to go. It's a lot more easy. I mean, so people were intimidated by foreign language, and particularly Russian. A lot of people because of the Cyrillic alphabet. Um, but the problem, the good thing about that is it's a whole lot easier once you get past the Cyrillic alphabet because it's very straightforward. It's very logical and very direct. English is not that way.
Well,
It's
it's three
a lot of
languages dressed
nuance.
in a trench coat.
Yeah, it's a nuance and it's very difficult to understand a
Oh
lot of the
yeah.
common words for sure. And that's another reason why the Western civilization, why you read those books is because that helps you to understand the context of those things and that way of thinking.
Right.
Also, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm. I guess I'm one of the few men that will admit that I read the instruction manual on how to do things. Like, so like for me, it was always a technical aspect. Like reading is a technical thing because I'm used to reading instruction manuals. Like, okay, I'm working this piece of wire. I need this kind of amperage for welding, for example, because we were talking
Right.
about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And then, like you can run this for this bead and do whatever with it. But you need to know that technical guide to do it. And that's kind of where I just inject reading as like, okay, I'm going to read this because I need something from it. Rather than for me to read something and just go, it's a story. I don't know. I'm not very a story driven kind of reader.
Yeah, I understand that. But I think it's good to like read the Iliad. It's a big old book and it's translated all over the world. But when you understand that, or once you understand the characters, things like that, it helps you to understand
The
people that
Iliad.
have read that also. It's by Homer. It's an old book. Um,
I don't remember that one.
it's usually required reading in high school or college or something like that. But the Iliad,
Was
the
it?
Odyssey, they're all
Wasn't it
cool.
referenced as the Odyssey?
Yeah, it's the Odyssey, the Iliad. They're similar. They're similar stories.
Okay, yeah, I read the Odyssey. That's what it was. And I always thought it was a joke. I was like, okay, this is Bible land territory. We're dealing with one-eyed monsters now. Okay,
Well, it's fiction, obviously,
right.
but it's
But
it's
again, that
intended
was that
for
was
entertainment,
that was my teenage years when I was, thought I knew everything kind of thing.
right?
Because everyone knows everything at teenage, and then
Right.
slowly at 23, you realize I don't know nothing.
Yeah.
What do
Well,
you mean taxes?
I'm in my mid 50s, and I still don't know what I want to do secularly with my life, much less all these other
I
big
am
things.
right there with you. Like I am having my midlife crisis at 32 because I've got a podcast. I work full time. I've got chickens in the background that I've got 75 more on the way because I'm running meat birds soon.
Uh,
I've got a game I got to learn how to develop. I've got, I've got so much. I'm looking at how to outreach this podcast more and more, but Not enough time in the world, as they say.
I feel you. I've got a lot of interests as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm into
also,
well, I'm in my secular job. I'm a process engineer, so I work for a large automotive manufacturer. I've worked there for 27 years, and
oh, nice.
I write books, I illustrate. I have a small home services company on the side. Um,
Yeah.
I volunteer in my community. There's lots of stuff that I'd like to do still aside from that.
I have never really volunteered to do anything. I've always been forced to do something by somebody else.
There's a big difference between willingly doing something and being forced to do something.
Yes, forced.
That's true. It comes from a different place, doesn't it?
Yes, usually
And it also gives you a different feeling when you do it.
it's usually from family members. Like, you got a truck? Shit, what do you need moved?
Right.
But it also doesn't help that, I'm kind of a gun nut. So, like, I'm everywhere on different perspectives and skeptics of everything. And it's like, I need to just chill out sometimes, but I can't. I've also got a Dungeons and Dragons game going, my campaign on Sundays.
Okay. So you have like a regular group that you go with?
Yeah, right now there's four of us that play regularly on Sunday. We've got one guy that drops in and out, and my wife drops in and out every now and again. But this is a story that is 12 years in the making that I'm having my players run through, my group of friends.
Okay.
And
Well,
they, they're destroying it.
I remember the kids playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was probably middle school, and I never really got into it. It was just it just never really appealed to me that much.
Well, it's a lot of reading, to be honest. And it's a lot of math.
Well, I didn't really like reading a lot when I was younger. I had learning deficiencies and things like that when I was growing
Right.
up. Now today, I don't read fiction. I read almost exclusively nonfiction. Um, I enjoy autobiographies, history books, psychology books. I think psychology is fascinating. I think
Oh, yeah.
if I had to have a career being a psychiatrist, psychologist, something like that would definitely be something to be very interesting to me. How people think is so fascinating. How they come to, they're exposed to a single situation and they come to totally opposite conclusions
Right.
about what's happening, and it's just fascinating.
My thing is herd thought process or hive minding. That is my thing that I'm fascinated by. How one person, like, everybody could be in a room and they're like, let me back up a little bit. I think it was in 2000, no, it was 1996. There was a missing boat, and they gathered 12 people in a room with all the military data. Like, okay, here's where we lost track of it. Figure it out because we can't find it. And those 12 people were within 2 kilometers of where that boat was sank at. And they were just guessing, completely guessing. But somebody interjected, like, okay, so it should be going this way based off this data. And they found it first before the military did. It's absolutely bonkers to me. Like, how did these normies figure this out? Or like when there was a documentary, can a normal person build a nuclear bomb? And they just went right online and they're like, yeah, they found a way to build a nuclear bomb, and the military brought it up like, it works. And no one had any engineering degrees whatsoever. They were just normie average people.
Right.
So that stuff really just, how does that one thought go through and it goes around everybody, seeming to improve and then get better at the final end? That just amazes me.
Some of the tools we use at work are helpful in focusing people's attention and efforts. So it's a program called Six Sigma. It's
Six Sigma.
Yeah, so Six Sigma is a that we use it to improve our process flows, to make things safer, to make them higher quality, more cost efficient, better deliverables. There's lots of things that you can use it for. It's pretty common in manufacturing and industry.
Okay.
But using those tools helps an individual get to the root cause of problems and find solutions. So one of the tools that we use is called 5 whys. So if you want to find out why something happened, ask why 5 times. So
okay.
Why did the boat sink? Well, did it have something to do with faulty? There was a faulty seam, a faulty weld. So why was that weld faulty? Well, uh, the welder was it was a Monday and he had been up late the night before, or
Woke
something
up
like that. Anyway,
hungover. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
by the time you go five whys, you've got down to the root cause of the problem. It would just the boat just didn't sink, the weld just didn't break, all
Right.
these things just didn't happen. There's a reason why those things happened, and driving down to that root cause is something that I really enjoy. Is
Interesting.
that's
So,
what my job is.
so you're aware that you can watch like Harvard and Stanford like psychology college courses on YouTube and
Yeah,
whatnot.
right.
So I watched a couple of those, and then I'm gonna wrap this up into another book. I watched a couple of those, and I kind of got the feel for how to like dig at people's psychological issues. And then now there's a Dungeons and Dragons variant of a game called Call of Cthulhu, which is a very psychological based game. It's a role playing game where you get in the. It's pretty much things happen in the 50s, and you have to kind of stop them, but it's a never ending process. And so, like, characters can get really insane people, like, become very insane and they get written off because they're no longer able to play. I sent my players, a group of 3, into this campaign and warped and twisted their mind with different types of illusions and mindsets and how things work. And then I revealed at the end this wasn't a demon, this was just a human who was broken by society. And they had to stop playing the game because they're like, I can't continue because this is way too close to home for us. And
Hmm.
like that was one of those moments like I can't play this anymore because I will hurt people with it. I cannot do this. Like making them believe that they were actually doing something for the greater good when instead they were just harming people in their own narcissistic way of doing and thinking of things. And it really spoke to them as a person. And I am
Humans can have fragile psyches for sure.
oh yeah, and I have not talked to them since because they refuse to talk to me. Whether it be good or bad, that's one thing. But I don't know, it's a weapon at that point in my eyes. But I still love it. I love the psychological games. Like, what's the one? It's mostly used for like people to get to know each other, and I think it's called the uh, the cube test. Do you know that one?
There's several of them. There's a book about love languages that
I don't
I've,
know if
I've
that's
read.
it.
And there's one. There's oh, what's the guy's name? There's Myers-Briggs as a
Myers
personality test.
Briggs.
So that you get Myers-Briggs is you'll have like 3 or 4 letters to describe you, like a INTJ or IF something or another. Um, but it's just a way of
Oh yeah, yeah, it is Myers Briggs.
helping
Yeah,
people understand one another.
yeah. Okay. I'm really focused. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I'll play with that later.
It's pretty common. I mean, it's a lot of people do that, particularly in their relationships early on, just so that you can understand how a person reacts, or what they consider normal. Because uh,
Is it educated horoscopes? Is that what it is?
no, I wouldn't go. I've never really put too much stock in the whole horoscope thing. I think that's kind of foolish, but
I find it funny. That's all.
it's I know people do it for entertainment, but I again, it's one of those things that I don't get into.
Right.
But the Myers-Briggs is not, it's scientific based, but it helps you. Of course, you have to use it also.
Oh
So
yeah.
when you use these tools that they're giving you, it helps you to have a better understanding of the person that you're dating, or your child, or whoever you have a relationship with in society. So
Yeah.
those are good things. Um, yeah, and there's lots of that's why I find psychology so fascinating. It's when you look at a segment of the person's psyche, and you're able to determine the uniqueness of that, and describe it, and it's repeatable, so it's
Right.
scientific. It's very helpful, because the way people react is very different based on their background, based on the experiences they've had in the past, and what they're currently experiencing. And I think that lots of decisions have been made uh, based on emotions. People
Right.
make emotionally based decisions many, many times. Humans tend to be ruled by their emotions.
Oh, yeah. That's
Uh,
like the so there's the I don't know how much political you follow, but this quote kind of comes into play. Ben Shapiro likes to say facts don't care about your feelings. Well, a lot of the counterparts to him say feelings don't care about your facts. So like
that's
it's a very violent circle like that.
Well, I'm not a political person, but the fact is, people are generally ruled by their emotions. They
Oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
make decisions. Even political leaders and things like that, they make very emotionally based decisions many
Oh,
times.
absolutely. And sometimes we like them and sometimes we don't. It kind of falls in what would you have rather done then, you know?
Well, if you could think of a person that would make strictly rational, logical choices and everything, they would be pretty successful in life. You wouldn't be one of these guys that's going out to a check cashing place and paying 6% interest. You wouldn't make that decision, would you?
You're
There's
right.
nobody would make that decision. They realize that that's not the logical course to take.
Right.
Uh, there's very few situations I can think of where a person would put themselves in that situation. But people do it all the time. You see
Right.
it. I'm sure in Michigan, people lining up around the block to the check cashing place
Oh
on Friday,
yeah.
and it's over 400% interest,
Oh,
and
yeah. Mostly in my experience, I can't say for everyone, but in my experience, it is because people don't want to pay child support. Like it's a spite thing. Like they rather pay the extra and not have it be registered on their taxes so they can't be proved it in court like this was something they got. And so that way they're punishing essentially their own child that way.
well, again, is that a logical choice?
I
Or
mean, it's a hateful one in my opinion.
well, that's an emotional choice now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You got me. You got me.
So that's the problem, though.
Right.
If everybody would make the logical choice, then we would have well, a lot less suffering in the world, probably.
Oh yeah, that and so I believe in meritocracy pretty hard, but I understand it's a flawed system. So I'm in a weird impasse on certain things like that. But I get it. Like, you want to put the best people in charge. Show me their merits, and
Well,
then usually you find the best logical way of solving issues because they're in that field.
well, the problem with that is, again, I'm not political, but
Right, right, right.
even if you get the best person in there, they're going to fail. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
it-
And that's the
and
one of the flaws.
even if they make the perfect decision their entire time that they're president or king or emperor or
Hmm.
whatever you're going to have in there, they eventually go old, they eventually die, and
Yeah.
then what? So we've experienced that. We've experienced all kinds of different forms of government, and none of them have been
The pinnacle of perfection.
particularly well. It's not particularly successful.
Right.
I'm an American, obviously. I love the ground that I was born on and all that kind of thing. I get it, but the United States is not without its problems.
Oh,
They have
absolutely.
so many. Even the major political parties can't agree on anything in order to have a little bit of a move forward. It seems like that they're stalemated, and that's reflected in their popularity. Congress and the Senate are extremely unpopular, just for the fact that they really don't get anything done, do they? That's the
Well, so most of that, and I follow a lot of politics. It's my guilty pleasure. I hate to admit it. But a lot of it is like a uniparty system. Like, yeah, they're Democrat, Republican, but they're uniparty. Jimmy Dore, are you familiar with who he is?
I don't think so.
He is a progressive, he's like a 90s Democrat, but he still considers himself progressive. He's a talk show host. He's been in the business for years. He's got a great one-liner. He goes, "What's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat donor or a Democrat politician? It just depends on how fast they drop to their knees when a donor walks through the door." And it's like, oh my god, he's not wrong.
Well, that goes back. It goes back to the emotions, doesn't it?
Yes.
They're emotionally driven, and again, another one of the many problems, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're not really a political guy, so we'll kind of steer away from that. Let's go to your teaching style. How long have you been a teacher on and off, I guess?
On and off for probably 15 years.
So, so I just recently had a teacher on my show, and they were doing, I think it was 10th grade. Where do you usually, on your scale, how old?
Um, so I was teaching high school, which would be between ninth and 12th grade. Um,
Okay.
and more recently, I've been doing, well, it depends on the school that I go to, but this last one was considered elementary school. It was fifth graders.
Okay. Do you think children are dumber now than when you first started?
That depends on how you define dumber. So I think that they're,
Let's go with test scores. Do you think their test
uh,
scores are lower than they have been?
I don't think that their test scores are going to be necessarily lower. And of course, that depends on the test that you're taking.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
so here, I'll give you this.
Okay.
My daughter, I read to her from birth. She was very smart, read very early, had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of good comprehension. When she was in the fourth grade, I got a call from the school counselor, and they said, "Mr. Blaine, we'd like to um, talk to you about your daughter." And I was like, "Okay, what's she done?" Because usually the guidance counselor does not call you for a good reason.
Right.
And she said that, well, I go in there, we talked, and she had they had these proficiency tests or something like that in the fourth grade. She did very, very well on it. They'd like to give her the eighth grade test. Fine, do whatever. It doesn't matter. So
Right.
she took the eighth grade test, did very, very well on that, and they said, well, called me back in a few months and said we'd like to give her the exit exam for 12th graders in Ohio or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but she took that, and they said that her lowest score was like 11th grade, fourth month in math. So, um, I don't know. Maybe it was an easy test. I don't know. I mean, I'm not to say that my daughter's not smart. I mean, she was probably exceptional as far as her ability to read and things like that at an early age. She didn't like math, um, and I think it's largely contingent on uh,
The teaching style,
the
maybe.
test, the child's ability to comprehend.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily make a person smarter. At work, everybody, I can't walk 100 feet without somebody asking me a question. I've been there 27 years, and everybody thinks I know the world. It's not. I don't think that I'm particularly smart. It's just that I have that experience. I
Right.
am exposed to a lot of things. I am kind of an outgoing person, like a driving force at the company. So, I'm not afraid to go find the answers to something.
Right.
Whereas, most people tend to be a little more reserved and timid. Um, I'm not that way at work. So,
I think that that way at work, I understand exactly what you're talking about because when I was doing a repair, I was under a repair contractor for like 2.5 years, and I would always go toe to toe with the foreman because I would claim like I know more than you. Just go sit down. I know what I'm doing. Go away. And it got to the point where all the other help would come to me for answers, and I'd always tell them, "I don't get paid for this, guys. What are you coming to me for? Because you
well,
get it done."
but does that
And
make you smarter? That's the question.
I
And I
think
don't.
it is a personality thing of you know what you're doing, therefore you give off that your posture comes into play too. Like I know what I'm doing, get out of my way, kind of thing. You're a more go-getter style. To where now a lot of children, and I've noticed this too, people my own age, they just don't have that driving force to go forward. And
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
think
make them any less intelligent necessarily. It's
that
just
is
that.
true. They just don't try. And that, I guess, is also indicative of test scores. Because if they don't try, they don't see a point in it. Wouldn't the test scores go down?
You would think though. Yeah.
Oh my. I I don't know. I thought high school was dumb. I still think high school is dumb.
I don't know that I felt the same way when I was going through it, and I've gone through college and everything too, and I don't think that I'm particularly any wiser because I went through college, despite the fact that they told me that I was.
It takes
You know,
C's
the
to
thing
get
is,
degrees.
well, the thing it is, I did great in college. I mean, I did as far as my scores and everything were concerned, but I think that I probably learn a whole lot more. I read probably 20 or 30 books a year.
Okay.
I think I learned more from that than I did during the time that I was in college. Because a lot of the things that we did in college, I'd already read. So books that we were assigned with, the Iliad, in my
Right.
humanities class, was required reading. I'd already read it. So
Yeah.
as long as I could pass the test, and everything was okay. So it's not. I don't think it's a measure of
You're right.
intelligence or
It's
smartness.
you're right. It's
People
not
look at their
fair.
IQ and they say, "Oh, my IQ is whatever." Um, does that make you smart? It doesn't necessarily do that. And I like that I think it's Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens said that uh, everybody's everybody's smart up their own alley. So you get up the wrong alley and you've got trouble. So
What was it?
uh,
I remember somebody saying like testing intelligence on a sheet of paper is like asking a goldfish to climb a tree.
yeah, yeah. So I don't really think of people as being smarter or dumber or anything like that. I think they're probably less experienced. Like I can see that.
Oh yeah.
I think that some people have a tendency to react more emotionally or logically. People that are ruled by emotions, they sometimes do irrational things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, if you take time, sit down, do your research methodically and reasonably make decisions, you're bound to make a much better decision.
Well, that's what the educated decision is. I almost just slung that out there. I must be getting tired. That's what that is.
But it's getting late. What time is it?
It is.
It's almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's my bedtime.
It is okay.
No, no, no. I'm just kidding. Yeah, as I get older, I was like, man, it is like 5 o'clock. I need a nap or go to bed early or something like that.
A nap? What's a nap?
Well, once your children are grown and everything like that, you have it's time for that in life.
Oh man, no. I'm a weird version of like insomniac and like overworker. I have a weird syndrome like that. So I work 60 hours a week, working for a delivery company, and
Oh,
I can only leave it at that. But I start my day at 5:45, and I don't usually stop until about 10:30 at night, and then start it all up again, keep going, and then lately it's because the seasons are changing. I've been coming home and just kind of like, I'm done,
yeah.
I'm done.
I've had a head cold for the last week, so I've been getting a lot more
Oh,
sleep than I typically do.
right.
Um, but I'm much the same way. I get up really early in the morning and I'll be answering phone calls and stuff like that until late in the evening.
I hate
I
my
won't go to
phone.
bed.
I'm one of the few people that I hate my phone. I
I have
absolutely do.
two. So
I would love nothing more than to take this and just throw it as far as I can because I just hate it.
I can remember the days when we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah,
It
me
was
too.
yeah. You didn't really have to worry about anything. If you broke down or something like that, you'd eventually make your way home. You didn't have to have
Yep.
a phone necessarily.
Uh, Me and my brother, I think we were about 9 and 7. I was 9 years old. He was 7. We had so we lived by this small lake, and we would always ride our bikes around everywhere. So my mom got us this 1 mile radius walkie-talkie, and she left it at home and gave one of us the walkie-talkie. And then that was our first cell phone.
Do you
And
remember? Do you remember the Nextel cell
yes,
phones? Those were
yes,
awesome, weren't they?
they
I mean,
were.
that was like I think they if of all the functionality and all the things that they have on smartphones now, I think that should be in one of them for sure.
Oh
That's
yeah,
it's so easy, so
yeah.
easy.
Somebody sends you a voice message, you just pick it up, click respond, and then drop your phone, and it goes right to them. It was the best. I loved it. There actually is an application like that. Me and my buddies used for a long time. I believe it was called Voxer,
Yeah,
Voxer,
yeah,
and
I had
it
that.
the same process, everything. It was great, but I think the services are down or they stopped using it because nobody downloads it no more. I
Well,
don't
the
know.
thing is too, it doesn't work as a radio necessarily, so you have
Right.
to have data.
Yeah.
So I would like to see. I'm sure with all the chips and stuff that they have in a phone that they could come up with something where it could transmit at least within a quarter mile or whatever.
Maybe.
Seems
See,
like they should be able to do that.
I know the issue with this, and this is kind of because I only know this vaguely because I thought about that too, and so I looked into it. Due to our restriction laws, a radio has to be able to transmit and receive off of radio waves, and a phone cannot do that, otherwise it's registered as a radio, which is a different law of wavelength.
Yeah, maybe they just need to change the law.
There you go. I mean, that's the only way to fix it. The other way is you just make your own, I guess, and then good luck. I mean, I don't know how to do it.
I had on my old phone, I had a Samsung Note 8. That was my
Okay.
favorite phone of all time. They stopped supporting it last year, and I was not very happy with it, so I was forced to get a new phone. But on my old phone, you could plug in earbuds to it, and I had an application where you could just have terrestrial radio,
Okay.
add a little tuner on it, and you could just listen to the radio on your phone, just like it was a regular radio.
No kidding.
And yeah, and it was pretty cool because I had just at work we have a local radio station, and I just wanted
Right.
to just hear. I listen to NPR again, not getting into the politics of NPR necessarily, but I do listen to them. And for the record, also I listen to Fox News too. So that's
Right.
not, I'm not, I'm equal opportunity, I suppose. And I listen to Al Jazeera, and I listen to BBC and so NHK out of Japan. So I get
Okay.
a lot of news sources because I like to have a balance of
Oh, yeah. A healthy digest is great for the political sphere. That's why I follow 3 libertarians, 2 conservatives, and then 3 liberal, progressive people. And because I have a driving job, I can listen to all of them all day and get like that healthy balance because I know like somewhere in between is the actual news.
right. Yeah, I find it seems like a long time ago when they had the evening news with Tom Brokaw or one of those guys like that. They were a whole lot less slanted towards the political
Well,
side. It was more interested in facts and truth.
because
Uh,
they had morals and they held themselves to a higher standard of being the arbiter of truth. Unfortunately, nowadays, we're everyone's being forced to realize like the media just says whatever they want. And this is not even political. This is just the media saying whatever they want, and because they're established, they just get away with it. And that's where a lot of things have come into issues of I have to fact check 6 different things to make sure that this one article is correct and I can run with it. And it's horrible.
well, you see the rumors that are going around. I had a guy come up to me at work and he says, "Will, did you hear about the town in West Virginia that was displaced by Syrian refugees?" And I'm like,
I don't
I'm
remember
from
that
West
story.
Virginia.
Right.
And I'm like, there's no way that that's true. But he's believing it, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, this is like something that one of the I don't know somebody had published. He had read it. Was very convinced that they had displaced uh, a small town in rural West Virginia. And I'm just it reeks automatically of at least spin, if not outright falsehood. But it's not true. I think I looked it up on Snoops or something like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on Snopes. Yeah, it's false.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I'm just looking at it. It's not even reasonable. Um, can you imagine the backlash that would have to displace an entire community in West Virginia? No, no, never going to happen. Just unreasonable. But people believe that thing, and it gets people politically motivated during that time period. During the months leading up to the election, it got people motivated to vote for one political party or another.
So I hate how Snopes does this. So they say false based on the video. It's actually in a different location. This video shows a Little Page Terrace housing project that's not actually what was built for the Syrian refugees. And then if you continue scrolling down to the bottom of the article, it says, actually, 13 refugees who were not necessarily Syrian are being held at the military base nearby as refugees. So even though it says it's false, it's kind of true that they are in a smaller town area, but
Yeah.
it's not in a town. Like,
And nobody's displaced. It's
right. It's because of the travel ban that went through. Their flights got canceled, that they had to put them somewhere for the time being. So they
well,
sent them to a military base. And
well,
this is from Snopes. And that's why I really don't like Snopes. So it's half true, half it's overblown, but there is some truth to it, and that's the crap that they pull. And I just don't like it. I don't like a lot of the media.
well, why can't everybody say what's true? I mean, that's shouldn't that be simple? I mean, just to
You would think.
well, I mean, it increases a person's credibility if they speak what's true. I mean, that's one big
Yeah.
thing with me. If a person loses credibility in my sight, I'm not going to trust them any longer.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's I don't know that anybody has ever, once they have betrayed my trust, have gotten that
They get
back.
they get on the shit list. That's what I like
Well,
to
it's
call it.
not. It's not even that. It's just that once somebody's untruthful or deceptive, you always have to question everything. I can
Oh
remember,
yeah.
like even my daughter when she was little, she was like 6 or 8 years old or something like that, and she'd lied to me about something, and it was not a big deal, but for the next several days, I'd ask if she did her chores. She had to feed her dog or something like that, and she's like, "Yes, Daddy, I fed my dog." And I was like, "Well, let's go check because you told me that you did before and you didn't. So we got to go check." She hated that. And I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
"Well, how am I going to know? How am I going to know that you're telling the truth because you told me that you didn't?" So after that, it was she realizes the impact of telling a lie. It's impactful. You people don't trust you. If people in society would build up a reputation of telling the truth and not spinning information, it would be a lot. I
Right.
think there people will be a lot more willing to believe what they have to say particularly when it's important. Everything that comes out of everybody's mouth now, people always question.
Yeah. So I have a more, I guess, I have a more libertarian bias, and I'll admit it straight up. Like, I'm do what you want, just leave me the hell alone kind of mentality. That's how I've always been, and I understand every state's different, so I don't see a real need for like federal laws. But then at a larger scale, okay, let's kind of we got to work together for national defense. It's a weird thing altogether. But even at a local level, I had the privilege to interview my local state rep. And as I was interviewing him, he goes, "So you're not going to cut this up and splice this up and to make it look all deceptive, are you?" And I said, "Why the hell would I do that?" He goes, "Oh, you're not part of a media organization, are you?" I said, "No, I'm just some dude with a camera. Like, like I'm just going to put this unedited. When I say start, that is the starting point. When I say we're done, that's when we're done and the camera's off." And he goes, "Oh." It was like just seeing this man have like a complete relief of like, "You're not going to do any of that?" And then at the end he goes, "I expect to see this completely as you said it was." And I sent it to him like, "Here you go. Here's the video. Everything I said, the whole conversation." And I received a lot of output from his team saying, "We really appreciate you, doing this. Could you do more of it?" I said, "Yeah, I would love to host a town hall between all the reps and when they're running. Let's make this happen. Like, we could live stream it and take questions from the community. Let's do go." And then, no. The staff is all involved in the dumb shit. And they're like, "Okay, never mind. I can't deal with staff teams that just don't work together. It's impossible to get politicians to talk."
Well, they have a vested interest in not, don't they?
Yes. Especially when it's even at a local level. Like, that's what surprised me is how much bureaucracy happens at a local level. But eh,
Well, it's one thing's for sure, humans do have a tendency not to agree with one another.
that is not true. I'm kidding. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the sign of the times. People can't get along with one another, and that's almost a universal thing.
My favorite thing is like when you say something that's just a little bit edgy, they immediately pull out their phone. They're like, "I'm gonna cancel you." Like, what? do you mean cancel me? Like, what does that even mean? Cancel me? You're going to my online presence? Oh no. I have more free time now. That's what you just told me. I don't know. I just find the whole think that they have false power funny to me. That's just it. And it kind of seems to strip a lot of power away from them after you call them out for it, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just unique to people that don't have a strong, like, backbone, I guess is what we would call it.
Well, I was reading a psychology book recently, and when it's made a suggestion to say, what did you mean by that? When somebody says something derogatory or inflammatory or something like that, you don't let them just say it just to give the slap, the verbal slap.
Oh,
You say,
yeah.
hey, what did you mean? What was your intent in saying that? So
Right.
that makes them verbally express. Was I, by saying this insult or whatever it is, it makes them speak it out. Say it, say what their intentions are, and it has a tendency to quell the reaction of the person to do something verbally offensive.
Yeah. I
Because it
mean,
makes them think. They're not reacting emotionally. They're
right.
having to logically think about what they're saying.
That's I believe that's debate 101. Make them like define what they mean by things, because then it shows that you have interest in what they have to say. They're more willing to come forward and give them an explanation, and then as they're thinking about the explanation, you should be thinking from their point of view what they're trying to converse, so that way you can come up with your own counterpoint.
Mhm.
And it's just, I think we should put debate class back in school. I really do.
I don't know that we had that. I don't remember having it at least when I was in school. We had a speech class.
Yeah, I had a speech
I
class.
don't know that it was necessarily debate though. I don't even think I took that class when I was growing up.
So I got into high school and I was like, all right, debate club, here I come, debate class. Took it away from the curriculum. Why? The one thing I look forward to, you take it away from me. Oh, that's annoying. But how long until you make another book? That's another good question.
I'm in the process of making one right now.
Oh, good.
I've written probably a dozen stories already. I just haven't published them. Um, the next one that I'm working on is called The Brat with a Bat.
The
Um,
That's
and
a good
again,
one.
this is the third book in the Wildly Inappropriate Stories for Children series. It's about a little girl that gets a new baseball bat and goes around whacking things. Uh, and again, very relatable. I
Yeah.
don't know. I know many children that have gotten themselves in trouble by uh, hitting stuff with a literal baseball bat, or in my case, a furring strip. Uh, yeah. So I love my youngest sister. I love her to death, and she was when this whole thing first started. She was her recollection was that after I hit her in the knees with the furring strip, she said, I told her not to tell mom and dad.
Classic.
My youngest sister, she's tough as nails. I mean, she is. I mean, from physical pain to anything, she handles it so well. And uh, I think that I have a share in her ability to do that from those experiences that she had at my hands when she was young. So
Good. I remember. So this is gonna be a little bit weird one, but do you remember? Do you know what there's a fiberglass rod? It's about 3 foot long. Usually you stake it in the ground, right, for like snowplows or whatever.
oh yeah, right.
Okay. So me and my brother, being the idiots that we were at 14, 12, 13, something like that. So we found a nice sturdy stick, and we put a piece of poly rope up on it, make a nice big bow, and we notched the end of the fiberglass rod, and we would launch it into the backyard to see how far we could get it, because we were poor and didn't have really a bow and arrow.
Right.
Well, My smart ass was like, oh yeah, no big deal. I'll just launch this while he's going to collect his fiberglass rod. What's the big deal? I swear it hit him right across the face, right through here, and just bounced off of him. And immediately was like, oh, hit me back. Don't tell mom. Just immediately. Not, are you okay? It was just hit me back.
I've got a story about that too. It's called So Long Spoon.
Oh, man. Oh, that's great. How many wooden spoons have you broken since as a child?
I don't know if I had any. I probably had more broken on me than
Yo.
anything. And I was funny too. I can remember that, all of the times I got beaten and stuff when I was a kid, and I remembered that as a father. My daughter's almost 30 years old now, and I was like, I think that most times when a parent resorts to beating their kid for whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's more an expression of their anger than to try to discipline the child. I'm a big fan of discipline. I think discipline is very important. However, there is a distinction between what discipline is and what punishment is and what abuse
Oh,
is.
yeah.
So discipline is correction. It is steering your child towards a particular goal. Everybody wants to steer their child towards being productive and having a good life, right? I mean, that's generally the way a good parent would do.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think that spanking really accomplishes that end outside the time that they're a couple years old. I mean, I could see where you can give them a swat because they try to stick their finger in a light socket when they're a little baby, or they walk out in the street or something like that, and you acutely, swat their hand or give them a swat on the butt or whatever, and say that's no, do not touch that. That's no, no, no. That could be very, very, very bad. But once they get to an age where they can communicate and they can understand you, that's not an effective way to truly discipline. That's more of an aggressive stance.
Yeah.
Um, I can remember from my time, it was not. It didn't teach me anything. It just taught me that I should not get caught next time doing whatever it was that I'm doing. And in all seriousness, that's all it taught me.
Yep.
It didn't teach me to do whatever it was, and I don't even remember what those things were. I do remember, the aggression and anger and all that kind of thing, but
It
not the
taught
other things.
it taught me how to clean up after destroying the kitchen after making breakfast.
Uh, uh, hopefully you didn't get beat that terribly for something like that. But
I got one swat and then a mop thrown in my hands, and then I learned how to use a mop at like 4.
well, I I've, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's more of a disciplinary thing. Is when you are have to deal with the consequences of your actions,
Oh
even
yeah.
at a young age. I'm not saying that you should have been swatted necessarily, but having to clean up after yourself, you make a big mess. Guess what? You have to clean it up.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think that's very reasonable.
So I was a bigger kid, and no matter how hard they hit me, I could not really get hurt. Like it just in general, like I just was resistant to it. Like I don't know, but it got to the point where my mother had a drawer full of broken wooden spoons from just one swat because
Well,
she just tries so hard to hurt me, and it's like, oh, what do I do now? Broken wooden spoon. And she's like, this is the going in the drawer. And it wasn't really like, I don't, maybe it was because I was tougher or whatever. I just ignorant ass. Who knows? But like,
I wonder though, if she's hitting you hard enough to break a wooden spoon, is it more that she's trying to teach you something in life, or is she just trying to get her aggressions out?
I'm a stubborn ass. So she
Well,
probably told me a couple of times beforehand, and I still did it. So that's usually the case.
and again, that's the second part of my theory is that parents don't have enough creativity these days,
That's true.
and they just resort to spanking with a spoon, whatever. My daughter uh, took up a career more recently as a school bus driver.
Oh, oh,
So,
poor
uh,
thing.
well, she's smart about it though. So on the school buses nowadays, they have a radio station, so they have a radio in there, and you can play music for the kids and things like that. Um, so she was she has a lot of rules for her kids. She doesn't allow them to cuss. She doesn't allow them to, whatever. And
Right.
some of the kids were breaking the rules one day, and she's like, okay. And she turned the radio station to NPR, and it just so happened that Lynn Neary, the political commentary, was on during that time of their bus ride home. So she turns it to uh, political commentary. The kids are freaking out. They're they're begging. Well, she's like, no, no, no. We'll listen to what you want to as long as you follow the rules. But if you don't follow the rules, we'll listen to what I want to.
Yeah.
And they listened to political commentary the rest of the way home. The next day, they were very, very well behaved.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I was more or less saying like because of the idiot drivers who like to go around the vehicle when the stop sign's out. That's more what I was referencing
oh
to
yeah,
her because I'm out there with her. I see the stupidity of drivers everywhere. And I'm not saying I'm the greatest driver. I'm honestly saying I am not the greatest driver. But man, if I'm average, I fear for below me.
you certainly can understand what a stop sign on the side of a school bus means, and when you
Usually. All right, well, do you have any socials people can follow you at?
I do. I put everything on my Instagram account. It's Curious Mind of Will. That's my company name, Curious Mind of Will at Instagram. You can see what I'm doing there. I've got lots of little sketches, illustrations that I've done from my books. It has it from the ground up, how I started and all the way through. I even put some captions in there with some of the storylines and how some of the pages are going to look in the books that are upcoming that haven't been published yet. So got all that going on. I post what's going on in my business, what's going on in my life sometimes. So you can look for me at Curious Mind of Will. You can also look for me on Amazon. That's where my books are published. You can just, as a matter of fact, you can type Will Blaine into Google and my name will come up. So Will Blaine,
So I'm not
BLA.
seeing you on Instagram.
Instagram, Curious Mind of Will,
No.
Curious.
I'm seeing Ramblings of a Curious Mind. I'm seeing what is this one? Mustangs of a Curious Mind. I'm not seeing your The Curious Mind?
No, it's just Curious Mind, CuriouSMindofFWILL. Yeah.
Huh. I was going to bring up a picture of your
It
Instagram,
looks
and
like
I
this, if you guys can see it.
Curious Mind of Will. Okay.
So at any rate, you can see what I'm into. I post on there. Sometimes it's daily, but most of the time it's every week or two. Uh, let's see what I'm getting into.
There we go. I got it now. Okay, there we go. Yeah, all right. And it's got your Amazon link on there. Cool, cool, cool. So people can go there and follow you if they like. I don't have an Instagram page, so unfortunately, I gotta get a social media guy to get on here so I can get my stuff
Yeah,
working
I think
again.
I'm on Facebook. Curious Mind of Will on Facebook also. It'll get you there. And I just recently did a TikTok. I got a TikTok account. I haven't really set it up or anything like that. So um,
All right.
I've got I've got a few things that I post on there, and that's and I link it to. I like how the application uses the video and puts the music and everything with it, and then I just direct it to my Instagram account. So
Nice.
this is the way I've done it so far.
Tools of the trade that I have yet to learn. Alrighty, Will. Thank you so much for being here. Any questions for me?
Oh no, I've really enjoyed myself. I had a good time.
Good.
Um,
Good.
yes,
Always glad to hear it.
yeah, yeah. We'll have to come back when I get a new book, and I'll read you some more stories. Everybody always likes the stories.
There we go. I like that. All right. And until the meantime, everyone, thanks for tuning in. And if you missed it, you can watch this on YouTube. Everyone, have a great night.
I do decree that it is time to anoint Fluffy the king of all shit. Thank you.
Hey guys, I just want to tell you something. Fluffy Hobo is the king of shit. And that's Ghost approved.
Proceed with mission.
I'm coming through that door right in front of you. The door's gonna open here now. Oh shit, that's the wrong thing! Hi. Oops. This is no longer me being a sniper. This is me just being a dick.
Make one. A torch. What tab does
Oh
torch
shit!
under again?
My fucking
What?
god!
Whoa! Holy shit!
Oh! It gave me a goddamn heart attack.
All I saw were red eyes.
Oh!
Alright.
Dang it. You took my kill.
Well, you should have killed him faster.
I had your back, dude. I had your back.
There's three.
Should have reloaded faster.
Hey, you know, I hit the R button fast. It never happens, man. I never get lucky enough.
It's like when you push down on the button hard enough, it gives you more power.
Isn't that how racing games work? You